The morning sky above New York turned black in seconds. Admiral Lisa Carter stood on the observation deck of the orbital station Meridian, watching massive ships blot out the sun over Earth's major cities. The alien vessels looked like giant sea creatures floating in space, their organic hulls pulsing with veins of green light. "Ma'am, we're getting similar reports from London, Tokyo, and Moscow," Lieutenant Commander Ryan Blake called from the station. 67 ships total. Each one is over 3 kilometers long. Lisa gripped the rail harder. 20 years in the Space Force, and nothing prepared her for this moment. The ships had appeared without warning, materializing out of empty space like ghosts made real. No radio signals, no demands, no communication at all. "Status of our defense grid?" she asked. "All stations are armed and ready. We have 48 orbital platforms and the lunar defense array standing by." Lisa nodded, but her stomach felt heavy. Their weapons were built to fight other humans, not whatever was inside those massive bioships. Still, they had to try. On the surface, Marine Captain Jake Morrison crouched behind the wreckage of an overturned car in Times Square. The evacuation had started too late. Panic filled the streets as people ran in every direction, screaming at the shadow that covered their city. Then the ship opened. Jake had seen combat drops before, but nothing like this. Instead of landing craft or shuttles, living things fell from the alien vessel. They looked like massive seed pods at first, each one the size of a city bus. When they hit the ground, they cracked open like eggs. "Holy Mother of God," whispered Sergeant Tony Martinez beside him. The creatures that emerged defied description. They stood 30 feet tall on 6 legs thick as tree trunks. Their bodies were covered in plates that looked like black armor, but Jake could see the plates breathing. Acid dripped from their mouths, eating holes in the concrete where it landed. Their eyes glowed red in the darkness, and when they opened their mouths, the roar shook windows 3 blocks away. "All units, engage targets." Jake spoke into his radio. He raised his rifle and fired. The bullets hit the nearest creature and bounced off like raindrops. The beast turned toward him, and Jake saw intelligence in those burning eyes. It knew exactly what shot it, and it was not pleased. More gunfire erupted around the square as his Marines opened up rocket launchers, machine guns, even a tank that had been abandoned near the subway entrance. Nothing worked. The creature's armor was too thick, too strong. The acid they sprayed dissolved the tank in minutes, leaving only a steaming pile of metal. Up on Meridian Station, Lisa watched the battle through satellite feeds. Her heart sank as she saw the same scene playing out in every major city. The creatures were methodical, destroying military units first, then moving on to infrastructure, power plants, communication towers, government buildings. They knew exactly what to target. "Admiral, incoming transmission from the Pentagon," Blake reported. "Put it through." General Patricia Hayes appeared on the main screen, her face grim. "Lisa, I need everything you've got. These things are tearing us apart down here." "Roger that. All stations, commence firing on the bioships." The orbital defense platforms opened fire. Particle beams, railgun slugs, and fusion missiles streaked toward the alien vessels. For a moment, Lisa felt hope as she watched the weapons strike their targets. Then the ships absorbed the energy. The organic hulls glowed brighter where the weapons hit them, like they were feeding on the attacks. The alien vessels grew larger, their bioluminescent veins pulsing with stolen power. "They're using our weapons against us," Blake said quietly. On the ground in Denver, Dr. Amy Rodriguez pressed herself against the wall of her laboratory as explosions shook the building. She was a xenobiologist, someone who studied the possibility of alien life. Now that possibility had become a nightmare. Through her window, she could see one of the creatures moving down the street. It was different from the one she had seen on the news feeds from other cities. This one was smaller, only 20 feet tall, but it moved faster. Its armor had a different pattern, almost like scales instead of plates. Amy grabbed her sample kit and emergency supplies. If she was going to die, she might as well learn something first. She had dedicated her life to understanding life from other worlds. Now she had her chance. The creature passed her building, heading toward the city center. Amy waited until it was out of sight, then ran outside. The street was covered in a strange slime that the creature had left behind. She collected samples, noting how the substance seemed to move on its own. Back in New York, Jake and his remaining Marines had retreated to the subway tunnels. Half his unit was gone, dissolved by acid or crushed under massive claws. The creatures had taken control of the surface in less than 2 hours. "Sir, we're getting reports that these things have appeared in smaller towns too," Martinez reported. "It's not just the big cities anymore." Jake closed his eyes. This wasn't an invasion. This was extermination. The aliens wanted humanity gone, and they had brought the perfect tools for the job. Above the clouds, Admiral Carter made a decision that would haunt her forever. All stations, fall back to defensive positions. We cannot engage the bioships directly. "Ma'am, what about the ground forces?" Lisa looked at the feeds, showing the creatures spreading across every continent. Cities were burning. Millions were already dead. The things down there were not just weapons. They were artists of destruction, painting Earth in blood and acid. "We save who we can," she said, "and we figure out how to fight back." In her Denver lab, Amy made a discovery that chilled her to the bone. The slime samples were not random biological waste. Under the microscope, she could see tiny structures that looked almost like sensors. The creatures were not just destroying everything in their path. They were studying Earth, learning about it, preparing it for something. As night fell across the burning planet, 3 species shared the same terrible knowledge. The aliens had brought their war beasts to crush human resistance. But Amy Rodriguez suspected that the real war had not even started yet. These creatures were just the first wave, testing Earth's defenses for whatever was coming next. And if the scouts were this unstoppable, what would the main force look like? "We can't. Not conventionally." Amy hesitated, then activated another display. "But I may have found something else. Something that might help." The screen showed survey data from an archaeological dig in the Gobi Desert. Amy had been part of the research team 5 years ago, before the invasion. They had found anomalies buried deep underground, readings that made no sense. This site showed massive energy signatures, but nothing we could identify. The dig was classified and shut down after we went down 40 meters. But the reading suggested something huge was down there, something that had been buried for millions of years. Lisa frowned. "What kind of something?" "We don't know, but whatever it is, it's been contained down there since before humans existed. The geological data suggests it was deliberately buried during the mass extinction event that killed the dinosaurs." Outside the bunker, Ben Harper made a decision that would save his team and damn his soul. The hunter was getting closer, and they had nowhere left to run. The children were exhausted, crying, sending out fierce signals like a dinner bell for the alien predator. Ben took out his sidearm and looked at the family they were protecting. The parents, Mark and Susan Wright, held their 2 young daughters close. The girls were maybe 6 and 8 years old, with dirty faces and tear-filled eyes. "I'm sorry," Ben whispered. He fired a single shot into the air. The sound echoed across the wasteland, and Ben felt his fear spike as he thought about what he was doing. The hunter would come for the loud noise and the fear spike, giving the family time to escape while Ben drew it away. "Run," he told the Wrights. "Head for the mountains. Don't look back." Mark Wright grabbed his family and ran. Ben watched them disappear into the ruins, then turned to face the hunter that was already charging toward his position. Its red eyes burned with hunger, and its claws left gouges in the concrete as it ran. Ben fired his entire magazine at the creature. The bullets did nothing except make it angry. The hunter leaped and Ben closed his eyes. But he had bought them time. The Wright family reached the mountain caves where other survivors waited. 2 children lived because 1 soldier chose to die. In Washington, D.C., President Helen Foster made the hardest decision of her life. The Capitol was overrun, the military was scattered, and the aliens were preparing to change Earth's atmosphere. Satellite data showed massive processing plants growing from the alien bioships, pumping unknown chemicals into the air. Authorized Project Lazarus. She told her aide before taking the poison pill that would end her life quickly. She would not let the aliens take her alive. The authorization code traveled through buried fiber optic cables to Cheyenne Mountain. When it arrived, Kate Sullivan felt her hand shake as she entered the confirmation sequence. "Are you sure about this?" Lisa Carter asked. Kate looked at the red zones covering most of their map. "We're going to lose anyway. At least this gives us a chance." Amy Rodriguez watched the authorization come through on her screen. She had hoped this day would never come. Project Lazarus was humanity's darkest secret, a plan to awaken something that should never be disturbed. But the aliens had left them no choice. Their war beasts were too strong, too smart, too perfectly designed for killing humans. If humanity was going to survive, they needed something even worse on their side. Amy looked at the survey data from the Gobi Desert dig site. Whatever was buried there had slept through the rise and fall of entire civilizations. It had watched the dinosaurs die and the mammals rise. It had been waiting in the darkness longer than humans had existed. "God forgive us," she whispered as she began preparing for the expedition. In the ruins above, the hunter that had killed Ben Harper let out a victory roar that shook the mountains. But its celebration was short-lived. Something else was stirring in the deep places of the earth, something that remembered when the world was young and terrible. The war beasts had conquered Earth in 3 months. But they were about to learn that humans were not the apex predators on this planet. They never had been. The helicopter flew low over the Gobi Desert, avoiding alien detection by staying close to the sand dunes. Captain Jake Morrison sat beside Dr. Amy Rodriguez, both of them studying the coordinates that would either save humanity or doom it forever. "Tell me again why we're digging up something that was buried for 65 million years," Jake said over the rotor noise. Amy looked at her tablet, showing the energy readings they had detected 5 years ago. "Because everything else has failed. The war beasts are too strong, too smart. We need something stronger." Behind them sat the best team they could assemble. Sergeant Maria Santos, an explosives expert who had survived the fall of Los Angeles. Dr. Peter Chong, a geologist who understood how to dig deep without causing cave-ins. Lieutenant Carl Hughes, a communications specialist who kept them connected to Cheyenne Mountain. The landing zone was a flat area surrounded by rocky hills. Perfect cover from the alien ships that patrolled the skies, looking for human survivors. Jake's scouts had confirmed the area was clear of war beasts, but that could change quickly. "Movement to the north," reported Private Jenny Walsh from her sniper position. She was their eyes and ears, watching for trouble while they worked. Jake raised his binoculars. 3 hunters moved across the desert 2 miles away, their dark armor blending with the shadows between dunes. They were not heading toward the dig site, but they were too close for comfort. "How long do you need, Doc?" Amy looked at the excavation equipment they had brought. 6 hours to reach the depth we need. Maybe 8 if we hit solid rock. "You have 4 hours," Jake decided. "After that, we pull out whether you're done or not." The digging began immediately. Dr. Chong used ground-penetrating radar to map the subsurface structures, while Santos set charges to blast through the hardest layers. The work was loud, dangerous, and would definitely attract attention if any war beasts were in the area. 40 feet down, they hit something that was not rock. "Jake, you need to see this," Chong called from the dig site. Jake rappelled down into the hole and found himself staring at a wall made of material he did not recognize. It looked like metal but felt organic when he touched it. Symbols were carved into the surface, but they were not from any human civilization. "This is not natural," Chong said. "Someone built this. Someone with technology far beyond anything humans have ever achieved." Amy joined them at the bottom of the hole. When she saw the wall, her face went pale. "The energy readings are off the charts down here. Whatever is behind this barrier, it's still active." More digging revealed that the wall was actually the top of a massive dome, buried deep beneath the desert. The symbols seemed to pulse with their own light as the team worked to find an entrance. "Contact." Walsh's voice crackled over the radio. "We've got hunters moving in from the east. 3 of them, maybe 4. They're tracking the noise from our digging." Jake cursed and looked at his watch. They had been working for 2 hours, but they were not deep enough yet. "How much time do you need, Amy?" "I don't know. We haven't even found a way inside yet." "Find one fast. We've got company coming." Santos placed shaped charges around what looked like a doorway in the dome surface. The explosion echoed to the dig site, and when the smoke cleared, they could see an opening leading into darkness deeper than night. Cold air flowed from the hole, carrying a smell that reminded Jake of deep ocean trenches and primeval forests. Amy took readings with her instruments, and the numbers made her hands shake. The atmosphere inside is different. Higher oxygen content, different atmospheric pressure. It's like stepping back in time millions of years. Hunters are half a mile out, Walsh reported. Moving fast. Jake made a command decision that would change everything. Santos, collapse the tunnel behind us. We're going in. Sir, if we do that, there's no way out. There's no way out up there either. Those hunters will track us down and kill us. At least this way we might learn something useful before we die. The team descended into the ancient structure. Emergency lights revealed corridors that stretched beyond the range of their flashlights. The walls were covered in more symbols, and these were glowing brighter as they went deeper. Amy's instruments detected massive spaces ahead, caverns that could hold entire cities. But more disturbing were the life signs her sensors were picking up. Something was moving in the darkness, ahead of them. "Jake," she whispered, "we're not alone down here." They found the first chamber an hour later. It was the size of a football stadium, with a ceiling that disappeared into shadows above. But what filled the space made them all stop breathing. It was a preserved ecosystem from Earth's distant past. Giant ferns grew in impossible patterns, their leaves glowing with bioluminescence. Insects the size of birds flew between branches that belonged to trees that had been extinct for eons. The air hummed with life that should not exist. But at the center of it all was something that made the alien war beasts look like house pets. The creature lay coiled around a structure that might have been an altar or a containment device. Its body was easily 300 feet long, covered in scales that shifted color like oil on water. It had 6 heads, each one the size of a school bus, with teeth that glowed white-hot in the darkness. "Dear God," Chong whispered. "What is that thing?" Amy checked her readings. The creature was alive but dormant, held in some kind of suspended animation by the technology around it. Energy flowed through conduits in the floor, keeping it asleep. This is what killed the dinosaurs, she realized. Not an asteroid. This, someone put to sleep and buried it here to save the world. Above ground, the hunters had found the dig site. They circled the collapsed entrance, confused by the loss of their prey scent. The creatures could sense human fear and desperation, but the signals from below were strange, muffled by layers of rock and ancient technology. In the chamber below, Jake studied the altar-like structure at the center. Control panels covered in alien symbols surrounded the sleeping monster. Some of the symbols matched the ones they had seen on the dome's surface. "Can we control it?" he asked Amy. "I don't know. But Jake, look at these energy readings. This thing is not just big and dangerous. It's smart, maybe smarter than the aliens." Through her instruments, Amy could detect brain activity in the creature's 6 heads. Complex patterns that suggested not just intelligence, but vast, ancient knowledge. This thing had been alive when the continents were still forming. It had memories that predated human evolution by hundreds of millions of years. "The question is," Chong said quietly, "do we wake it up and hope it kills our enemies? Or do we leave it asleep and hope someone else finds a solution?" Jake looked at his team. They were good people, the best humanity had left. They deserved better than this choice. Everyone on Earth deserved better. But the hunters above were proof that humanity was losing. The aliens were too strong, too advanced, too perfectly designed for conquest. In a few more months, there would be no humans left to save. The aliens brought their war beasts, Jake said finally. Time to show them what Earth was hiding. Amy's hand hovered over the control panel. Warning symbols flashed around the containment system, messages in a dozen dead languages, all saying the same thing. Do not wake what sleeps. But outside, the war beasts prowled to the ruins of human cities. Children hid in caves while hunters tracked their fear. The sky was full of alien ships preparing to transform Earth into something unrecognizable. "I'm sorry," Amy whispered to both species as she pressed the activation sequence. The ancient technology began to shut down. Energy flowed away from a containment system and into the creature's body. In the darkness, 6 pairs of eyes opened for the first time in 65 million years. They glowed like stars being born, and in their depths was a hunger that had been waiting since the world was young. The creature's first movement sent shock waves through the mountain above. Its first breath changed the air pressure in the chamber, and when it spoke, the voice came from all 6 heads at once, speaking in harmonics that had not been heard since the oceans first formed. The translation was burned into their minds without words. Finally, the children have awakened the parent. Let the hunt begin. The mountain exploded. Captain Jake Morrison felt the shock wave throw him against the chamber wall as the ancient creature broke free from its prison. Rock and metal flew through the air as something older than civilization clawed its way toward the surface. The sound was beyond description, like thunder and earthquake and screaming wind all happening at once. Amy Rodriguez tried to keep her instruments working as the chamber shook itself apart around them. Her readings showed impossible energy levels, power sources that made nuclear reactors look like flashlights. Whatever they had awakened was not just big or dangerous. It was a living weapon that had been sleeping since before humans learned to make fire. Move. Everyone out. Jake yelled over the noise. But there was nowhere to go. The tunnel they had used was buried under tons of collapsed rock. The only exit was up, following the creature as it smashed through 65 million years of sediment and stone. The beast heads emerged first, each one bigger than the hunters that had been tracking Jake's team. Its eyes burned with intelligence that made the alien war beasts look like simple animals. When it saw the humans, it paused, studying them with interest that felt like being examined by a god. Then it smiled with all 6 mouths, showing teeth that could bite through tank armor. Jake expected to die in that moment, but instead, the creature spoke again, its voice filling their minds without using sound. You woke the sleeper to fight the invaders. Clever children, watch and learn what real predators look like. The beast finished breaking through to the surface, its massive body uncoiling like a snake made of nightmares. It was even bigger than Jake had realized underground, 300 feet long, with scales that reflected light, like mirrors and claws that left gouges in solid rock. Above ground, the 3 hunters that had been tracking the human team froze when they sensed something new. Their enhanced senses, designed to detect human fear and emotion, suddenly overloaded with signals they could not understand. Something was coming up from deep underground, something that radiated power, like a furnace radiates heat. The first hunter turned to run just as the ancient creature burst from the earth. What happened next was not a fight. It was a lesson in the difference between manufactured weapons and evolutionary perfection. The hunters were fast, armored, and deadly. The ancient beast was faster. Jake watched through a crack in the rubble as the creature's 6 heads moved independently, each one tracking a different target. The hunters tried to use their acid spray, the weapon that had dissolved human tanks and aircraft. The ancient beast absorbed the acid and used it to grow new armor, plating on its flanks. When the hunters tried to run, the creature moved like liquid lightning. Its claws did not just kill the alien war beasts. They studied them, learning from their biotechnology even as they tore them apart. It's adapting, Amy whispered in amazement. Look at its scales where the acid hit. It's incorporating their defensive systems into its own body. The battle lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, 3 of the aliens' most dangerous war beasts were nothing but organic components being absorbed into the ancient predator's ever-changing form. The creature had not just won. It had improved itself by winning. Admiral Lisa Carter watched the satellite feeds from her command bunker in the Rocky Mountains. Every screen showed the same impossible scene. The creature that had emerged in the Gobi Desert was moving across Asia at incredible speed, seeking out alien war beasts wherever they could be found. And it was winning every encounter. Ma'am, we're getting reports from Beijing, Mumbai, and Tokyo, Lieutenant Commander Blake reported. The creature has destroyed 47 war beasts in the last 6 hours. The aliens are pulling their forces back to defensive positions. Lisa stared at the tactical display. For 3 months, humanity had been losing ground every day. Now the red zones on our map were turning blue again as the ancient predator cleared out alien strongholds with ruthless efficiency. What about civilian casualties? Blake hesitated. Unknown, ma'am. The creature seems to be ignoring human settlements, but it's moving through populated areas. We have no way to communicate with it or predict its behavior. On the ground in the ruins of Mumbai, refugee camp leader Robert Kim watched the beast pass within 100 yards of their hiding place. 2,000 human survivors held their breath as the monster paused, its 6 heads turning toward their underground shelter. For a terrifying moment, Robert thought they had been discovered. The creature's eyes seemed to look right through the concrete and steel that protected them. But then it moved on, following the trail of alien war beasts toward the coast. "It knows we're here," whispered Maria Lopez, one of the camp security chiefs. "But it's not hunting us." "Yet," Robert added quietly. The alien bioships in Earth's orbit detected the new threat within hours of the creature's awakening. Their organic sensors, designed to monitor the planet's biosphere, registered massive changes in the ecosystem as something began hunting their war beasts with perfect efficiency. The ship commanders had never encountered anything like this. Their war beasts were bred for conquest, genetically engineered over thousands of years to be the perfect soldiers. They had conquered 17 worlds using these creatures, facing everything from mechanical armies to energy beings to hive minds. But this thing was different. It was not fighting their war beasts. It was consuming them, learning from them, becoming stronger with each victory. And worse, it seemed to be enjoying the hunt. Back in the Gobi Desert, Jake's team finally dug their way out of the collapsed chamber. They emerged into a landscape that had been completely transformed. The sand dunes were gone, replaced by massive trenches where the ancient creature had burrowed to the surface. The rock formations looked like they had been sculpted by an artist who worked in geological scales. "Doc, look at this," Sergeant Santos called from a nearby crater. Amy ran over and found herself staring at the remains of one of the hunters. But it was not like the other alien corpses they had seen. This one had been dissected with surgical precision, its biotechnology carefully removed and analyzed. It's studying them, she realized, not just killing them. It's learning how their technology works, so it can build better versions. Dr. Chong picked up a piece of the hunter's armor plating. "This has been cut with something sharper than any tool we've ever made. Look at these edges. The cuts are cleaned down to the molecular level." Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the desert wind. "Amy, what exactly did we wake up?" "Evolution's mistake," she replied quietly. "Something that was too successful, too perfect at killing and adapting. The mass extinction event that ended the age of dinosaurs wasn't caused by an asteroid. It was caused by this thing eating everything on the planet. Then why did someone put it to sleep instead of killing it?" Amy looked at the dissected hunter remains. Maybe because they knew something worse might come along someday. Something from the stars. Across the Pacific Ocean, the ancient creature had reached the coast of California. The alien war beasts that had been terrorizing Los Angeles tried to form a defensive line, but it was like trying to stop an earthquake with a fence. The beast had learned much from its previous encounters. Its scales now incorporated the hunter's stealth technology, making it nearly invisible when it wanted to be. Its breath weapon combined destroyer's acid with energy absorption capabilities stolen from the orbital bioships. But more than that, it had begun to think strategically. Instead of just hunting individual war beasts, it was disrupting the aliens' entire command structure. It attacked their communication nodes, destroyed their supply lines, and eliminated their most experienced battlefield commanders. The creature was not just killing the alien forces. It was systematically dismantling their invasion. Colonel Kate Sullivan watched the reports coming in from around the world. In less than 24 hours, the ancient predator had single-handedly turned the tide of the war. The aliens were retreating, pulling their forces back to their bioships and preparing to leave Earth's atmosphere. "Ma'am," Captain Clark reported from a station, "we're detecting massive energy buildups in the alien fleet. It looks like they're preparing to abandon the surface completely." Kate allowed herself a moment of hope. Maybe they had done it. Maybe they had found something capable of driving off the invaders without destroying humanity in the process. Then Amy Rodriguez's voice came over the emergency channel, broadcast from her position in the desert. "All stations, this is Dr. Rodriguez. The creature is changing course. It's no longer hunting alien war beasts. It's heading for population centers. Repeat, It's heading for human cities. Kate felt her hope crumble. The ancient predator had eliminated the alien threat, but it was still hungry. And now that the war beasts were gone, there was only one other intelligent species left on Earth to hunt. Humanity had awakened something far worse than their enemies. They had called forth the apex predator of a world that no longer existed, and was about to remind them why it had been buried for 65 million years. The ancient creature stood at the edge of Denver, its 6 heads raised toward the city skyline like a dragon considering which building to burn first. Dr. Amy Rodriguez watched from a military observation post 10 miles away, her instruments detecting energy patterns that made her blood run cold. "It's not just looking at the city," she reported to Colonel Kate Sullivan over the radio. "It's analyzing it, studying the population distribution, the infrastructure, the defensive positions. It's planning." In her bunker beneath Cheyenne Mountain, Kate stared at satellite feeds showing the beast's approach to major population centers around the world. The creature had split itself somehow, growing smaller versions of its body that moved independently across different continents. Each fragment retained the intelligence and power of the original. "How many people are we talking about?" Kate asked her aide. 15 million in the Denver metropolitan area, 32 million in the Tokyo zone, 41 million around London. Captain Clark's voice was hollow. "It's targeting the largest remaining human settlements first." The irony was devastating. The ancient predator had saved humanity from the alien invasion by hunting their war beasts to extinction. The few remaining bioships had retreated beyond the moon, afraid to land on a planet that contained something capable of destroying their perfect weapons. But now the savior had become the threat. Admiral Lisa Carter made the hardest decision of her military career: open a channel to the retreating alien fleet. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Commander Blake looked shocked. "You want to contact our enemies?" "Our enemies are down there." Lisa pointed at the screen showing the ancient creature approaching human cities. "Those ships are our only chance of getting people off this planet." The first communication from the Zephyrian fleet came 12 hours later. The message was simple, transmitted in basic mathematical concepts that any intelligent species could understand. It translated roughly as, "We know what you awakened. We want to help." Captain Jake Morrison led the first diplomatic mission to meet with the aliens. His team assembled at a neutral location in the Australian outback, far from any population centers that might attract the ancient predator's attention. When the Zephyrian shuttle landed, Jake felt surreal stepping forward to greet the beings who had been trying to exterminate humanity just days before. The Zephyrian commander was tall and thin, with gray skin that seemed to shift color in the sunlight. Its large black eyes showed intelligence and something Jake had not expected: fear. "You call it the sleeper." The alien spoke through a translation device. "We have encountered 3 worlds where similar entities were buried. Each time, the native species awakened them to fight us. Each time, the awakened destroyed both species. How do we stop it?" Jake asked directly. "You cannot. It is evolution's perfect predator, designed to consume entire ecosystems. The only option is evacuation. Our ships can carry your survivors to safe worlds, planets where the sleeper cannot follow." Amy Rodriguez, monitoring the conversation from her remote location, felt her heart sink. Through her instruments, she could detect the ancient creature's biological processes. It was not just hunting for food or territory. It was preparing to reproduce, using the biomass from consumed prey to create offspring. If they gave it time, there would be thousands of these things spreading across the galaxy. In Denver, refugee coordinator Patricia Wong made an announcement that would define humanity's future. "All residents are proceed to evacuation points immediately. This is not a drill. We have transport ships waiting to take you to safety." The evacuation began as the ancient creature reached the city's outer suburbs. Its 6 heads moved like serpents, testing the air for chemical signatures that indicated large concentrations of life. When it found the first residential district, the beast paused, studying the fleeing humans with what seemed like curiosity. Then it began to feed. Jake Morrison watched the satellite footage and wanted to vomit. The creature did not simply kill humans like the alien war beasts had. It was methodical, precise, taking people alive and integrating their biological systems into its own expanding mass. The beast was growing larger, smarter, more complex with each feeding cycle. It's learning our biology, Amy reported from her mobile lab, not just consuming us, but understanding how human physiology works. It's preparing to adapt our strengths into its own design. The evacuation ships were a bizarre sight. Human refugees boarding vessels designed by their former enemies, while their planet was consumed by something that made both species look primitive. The Zephyrians worked efficiently, loading as many humans as their bioships could carry. But there was not room for everyone. Lisa Carter made the final command decisions from her bunker as reports came in from around the world. Priority goes to children first, then adults with essential skills. Military personnel will be last on the evacuation list. "Ma'am, that includes you," Blake pointed out. "I know." Lisa looked at the screen showing Earth from orbit, still beautiful and blue despite the horror spreading across its surface. Someone has to coordinate the defense of the remaining settlements until the last ship launches. Dr. Amy Rodriguez chose to stay behind with a small research team, determined to learn everything possible about the ancient predator before humanity abandoned Earth forever. Her final transmission would become legendary among human survivors scattered across the galaxy. "The creature is not evil," she broadcast from her lab as the beast approached her position. "It's simply following its nature, doing what evolution designed it to do. It survived the death of the dinosaurs, the rise and fall of countless species, and millions of years of geological change. It is the ultimate expression of life's drive to survive and adapt." The transmission continued as inhuman roars echoed outside her bunker. "We made a choice to wake something that should have stayed buried. Both humans and Zephyrians thought we could control forces beyond our understanding. We were wrong." Amy's instruments detected the creature directly above her position. Its massive claws were tearing through reinforced concrete like paper. But perhaps this is how intelligence is supposed to work in the universe. Perhaps every species eventually faces a choice between wisdom and survival. Perhaps the smart ones learn to run. The transmission ended abruptly. Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the last evacuation ship, watching Earth shrink to a blute behind them. Around him, human and Zephyrian survivors worked together, sharing resources and knowledge in their new partnership born from mutual terror. "How many made it out?" asked Maria Santos, the explosives expert who had helped dig up humanity's doom. 43 million humans across 17 ships, Jake replied. "Less than 1% of our original population." The Zephyrian commander approached them at the observation window. Its translator device crackled as it spoke. "Our species lost 2 billion individuals in the war before we awakened our first sleeper. We learned wisdom from that disaster. Your species learned faster. What happens now?" Jake asked. "We find new worlds for both our peoples. We share knowledge, technologies, cultures. We ensure that neither species ever again awakens what should sleep." On Earth below, the ancient creature had consumed enough biomass to begin its reproductive cycle. Soon there would be dozens of offspring, then hundreds, eventually spreading to every continent and every ocean. But without intelligent species to hunt, the creatures would eventually turn on each other, competing until only the strongest survived. In a few thousand years, Earth would reset itself again, preparing for the next cycle of evolution to begin. Perhaps the next intelligent species would be wiser than humans or Zephyrians. Perhaps they would find the buried warning messages and choose not to wake the sleepers. But Jake Morrison doubted it. Intelligence seemed to carry with it an inevitable arrogance, a belief that any problem could be solved with enough knowledge or firepower. Humanity had awakened their destroyer, trying to save themselves from invaders. The Zephyrians had done the same thing on 3 different worlds. As the evacuation fleet left Earth behind, heading for distant stars where both species might find new homes, Jake wondered if the pattern would repeat itself. Would their children's children someday face a threat so terrible that they would consider awakening something even worse? The universe was vast and full of buried things that waited in the dark. And somewhere in that darkness, intelligence always seemed to make the same choice. Survival at any cost, wisdom only after disaster. Earth turned in its orbit around the sun, blue and beautiful and deadly. The sleeper was awake, and it would remain so until the next species grew smart enough to put it back to sleep, or foolish enough to wake something even worse. In the end, that was humanity's true legacy. Not their art or science or culture, but a simple warning transmitted across the galaxy. Some doors should never be opened. Some weapons should never be used. Some prices are too high even for survival. The stars listened and the stars remembered, and somewhere in the darkness between worlds, other sleepers waited for the next desperate species to make the same terrible choice.